The massive chamber of the Galactic Council fell silent as Ambassador Hyun-woo stood at the center platform. Around him, representatives from 12 ancient alien civilizations watched with a mixture of curiosity and pity. The holographic displays showed Earth floating in space, small and blue and seemingly insignificant. High Regent Morthus of the Kravax Empire loomed over the assembly from his elevated throne. His dark purple skin gleamed under the chamber lights and his 4 eyes fixed on the human ambassador with obvious contempt. The Kravax had conquered 47 star systems in the last century. Earth would be number 48. Human, Morthus said, his voice echoing through the chamber. My patience grows thin. Your world has 3 options. Surrender and become servants of the Kravax Empire. Pay us tribute of half your planet's resources every year. Or face complete annihilation. Choose now. Hyun-woo looked up at the alien warlord without fear. He was a tall man by human standards, wearing a simple gray suit that seemed plain compared to the elaborate robes and armor of the other species present. His black hair was touched with gray at the temples, and his eyes held a calm determination that made several council members shift uncomfortably. High Regent Morthus, Hyun-woo said clearly, on behalf of the United Earth government and all humanity, I reject all 3 of your options. Earth will not surrender. We will not pay tribute. And we will not be annihilated. The chamber erupted in shocked whispers and alien sounds of disbelief. Counselor Vex, an ancient being whose species had been spacefaring for 10,000 years, leaned forward in his seat. His crystalline body refracted the light in strange patterns as he studied the human carefully. Morthus's mouth split into what might have been a smile, revealing rows of sharp teeth. You refuse? You, whose species has barely left your own solar system? You dare refuse the Kravax Empire? I do, Hyun-woo replied simply. Another council member, a being that resembled a floating mass of tentacles, spoke up. Ambassador Hyun-woo, please reconsider. Your species has only been capable of interstellar travel for 70 years. The Kravax have warships that number in the thousands. Their military technology is centuries beyond yours. This is not courage. This is suicide. Hyun-woo turned to address the entire council. We know exactly what we face. We have studied the Kravax carefully since our first contact with the galactic community. We know their tactics, their weapons, their history of conquest, and we have prepared accordingly. Morthus laughed, a harsh barking sound. Prepared? What preparation could possibly matter? I will send 300 warships to your little blue planet. Your primitive orbital defenses will fall in days. Your cities will burn, and your people will beg for the mercy of servitude. Perhaps, Hyun-woo said. Or perhaps you will discover that Earth is not like the other worlds you have conquered. The human ambassador activated his own holographic display. Images appeared in the air showing Earth's history. Battlefields from ancient times. Medieval castles under siege. World wars with millions of soldiers. Nuclear explosions that scarred the planet itself. Every species here achieved space travel through cooperation and peace, Hyun-woo continued. Your worlds were gardens where civilization grew naturally. But Earth is different. We call it a death world. Our planet tried to kill us every single day of our evolution. Predators hunted us. Diseases plagued us. Weather extremes froze and burned us. We survived ice ages and volcanic winters. And then we started fighting each other. The images showed more warfare. Ships battling on oceans. Aircraft dueling in skies. Tanks rolling across scarred landscapes. Cities reduced to rubble and rebuilt again. We have been at war with something or someone for our entire existence. Hyun-woo said quietly. We have fought 10,000 wars on our single planet. We have developed weapons capable of destroying our own world 100 times over. We nearly drove ourselves extinct 3 times. War is not something we study in history books. War is what made us human. Counselor Vex spoke again, his voice thoughtful. This is true? Your species evolved through constant conflict? Every day of our existence has been a fight to survive, Hyun-woo confirmed. And when we finally reached the stars and met peaceful species like yours, we realized something terrifying. We realized we were the anomaly. We were the predators. We were the monsters that evolution created when a planet refuses to let anything survive easily. Morthus slammed his armored fist against his throne. Enough of this theater. Your words mean nothing. 15 years ago, my scouts encountered your pathetic exploration vessel, one small ship with primitive weapons. They fled from us like cowards. That is what humans are. Cowards who talk bravely but run when faced with real power. Hyun-woo smiled slightly. You are referring to Captain Jiho's mission. The ESS Discovery. Yes, they encountered your scout fleet, and yes, they retreated. Do you want to know why, High Regent? Because they were weak, Morthos sneered. Because Captain Jiho had orders to observe and report, Hyunwoo said. Not to engage. He watched your ships, he studied your tactics. He analyzed your weapons, and then he brought that information home. For 15 years, High Regent, Earth has been preparing specifically for you. Every ship we built was designed to fight Kravax vessels. Every weapon we developed was meant to counter Kravax technology. Every soldier we trained learned to kill Kravax warriors. The chamber had gone completely silent now. Even Morthos seemed momentarily taken aback. We knew you would come eventually, Hyunwoo continued. We knew because we studied your expansion pattern. You conquer a world, strip its resources, and move to the next target. You are predictable, and now you have chosen Earth as your next victim. You believe we are weak because we are young. You believe we are helpless because our technology seems primitive. You are about to learn a very painful lesson, High Regent. And what lesson is that? Morthos demanded. Hyunwoo looked directly at the alien warlord. That there is a difference between not knowing how to fight wars and choosing not to fight them. The other species in this council achieved peace because they never learned war. Humanity achieved peace because we became too good at war. We learned to turn entire planets into weapons. We learned to kill with such efficiency that we terrified ourselves. And then we decided to stop, but we never forgot how. He paused, letting his words sink in. You are about to attack a planet where every single human has grown up watching stories about war. Where children play games about battles. Where our entertainment is full of conflict and struggle. Where our greatest heroes are warriors and survivors. You are about to invade a world that has spent 10,000 years perfecting the art of killing. Morthos stood up, his massive frame towering over the assembly. Your threats are empty. I will show the galaxy what happens to those who defy the Kravax Empire. My fleet departs within the hour. In 1 month, your world will be ashes. Then come, Hyunwoo said softly. Come to Earth, High Regent. Bring your 300 ships. Bring your armies. Bring your conquest. And we will show you why the most dangerous predator is the one that has been pretending to be prey. Morthos stormed out of the chamber, his guards following. The other council members sat in stunned silence. Several of them looked at each other nervously. A few began placing bets on how long Earth would survive. Most gave humanity less than a week once the Kravax fleet arrived. Only Councillor Vex remained motionless, his ancient eyes fixed on the human ambassador. Finally he spoke. Ambassador Hyunwoo, I have lived for 6,000 years. I have seen empires rise and fall. I have witnessed countless wars. And in all that time, I have never heard a species speak as you just did. Tell me truthfully, do you believe your world can survive what is coming? Hyunwoo gathered his documents and prepared to leave. He looked at the ancient being and smiled, but there was no humor in it. Only a cold certainty that made Vex's crystalline form shiver. Councillor Vex, Hyunwoo said, you are asking the wrong question. The question is not whether Earth can survive. The question is whether the Kravax Empire will. The human ambassador walked out of the chamber, leaving behind a council full of beings who suddenly wondered if they had underestimated these strange newcomers from the death world called Earth. In orbit above the council station, Morthos's fleet was already gathering. 300 massive warships, each one bristling with weapons, each one crewed by Kravax warriors who had never lost a battle. They set course for Earth, confident in their inevitable victory. Behind them, Councillor Vex activated a private communication channel and began recording everything he knew about Death World species. He had a feeling the galaxy was about to learn a lesson it would never forget. And somewhere in Earth's solar system, Captain Jiho received word that the Kravax were coming. He looked out at the stars and thought about the past 15 years. All the preparation, all the planning, all the weapons they had built in secret. Let them come, he whispered to himself. We will be ready. The Kravax fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of Earth's solar system. 300 warships, each one larger than a human city, hung in the darkness of space like predators ready to strike. On the command deck of the flagship, High Regent Morthos studied the tactical displays with satisfaction. Report, he demanded. We are at the outer system boundary, his tactical officer responded. Initial scans show no defensive structures, no orbital weapons platforms, no fleet positioned to intercept us. The system appears completely undefended. Morthos leaned back in his command chair. Exactly as expected. The humans spoke bravely, but they have nothing. Set course for the third planet. Standard conquest formation. We will be in orbit around their homeworld within 3 days. The fleet began moving forward, massive engines pushing the warships deeper into the solar system. They passed the orbit of Neptune without incident. Then Uranus. Still nothing. No resistance, no defenses. Just empty space and distant planets. The humans are cowering on their world. One of Morthos's commanders said. They hoped we would be frightened by their ambassador's words. Now they hide and pray we show mercy. But on the bridge, one junior officer studied his sensors with growing concern. Hi, Regent. I am detecting unusual readings in the asteroid belt ahead. Multiple objects showing heat signatures that do not match natural asteroids. Investigate, Morthos ordered, but maintain course. Whatever primitive traps the humans have set will not stop us. The fleet continued forward, entering the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter. Thousands of space rocks drifted around them. Some as small as cars, others as large as mountains. The Kravax ships navigated carefully, their shields deflecting the smaller debris that came too close. Then everything changed. Without warning, dozens of asteroids simply exploded. Not from collision, not from natural causes. They detonated with the force of nuclear weapons, sending superheated fragments tearing through space at incredible speeds. 6 Kravax ships were destroyed in the first 3 seconds. Another 12 were severely damaged. Evasive maneuvers. Morthos roared. Return fire! Find the enemy! But there was no visible enemy. Just asteroids that kept exploding. Except these were not random explosions. Each detonation was precisely calculated to send debris into the path of Kravax ships. The humans had turned the entire asteroid belt into a massive minefield. On the ESS Vengeance, hidden behind a large asteroid that had been carefully hollowed out, Captain Jiho watched the chaos unfold on his tactical display. He was a lean man with sharp eyes and the kind of calm that only came from decades of military experience. Around him, his crew worked in focused silence. 23 enemy ships disabled or destroyed. His tactical officer reported. Our stealth coding is holding. They still cannot detect us, Jiho nodded. Launch drone swarms. Pattern Delta. All ships initiate hit-and-run protocol. Remember, we are not trying to win a stand-up fight. We are trying to make them bleed. Throughout the asteroid belt, hidden human vessels began launching thousands of small drones. Each one was barely larger than a human fist painted black to blend with space and equipped with simple but effective weapons. They swarmed toward the Kravax fleet like angry insects. The Kravax ships tried to target them, but there were too many. The drones were too small and too fast. They attached themselves to shield generators, engine ports, sensor arrays. Then they detonated. Individually, each explosion was minor, but thousands of them striking simultaneously began to overwhelm the Kravax defenses. This is impossible, one of Morthos's commanders shouted. Our sensors cannot track them.
The humans have technology that should not exist.
They are not using advanced technology, the tactical officer corrected nervously. They are using simple technology in ways we never anticipated. These drones are primitive, but there are too many of them. Jiho spoke calmly into his communication system. All ships, Phase 2. Target their command vessels. Fire on my mark. Hidden throughout the asteroid belt, 30 human warships powered up their weapons. They were smaller than the Kravax vessels, built for speed and stealth rather than raw power. But what they lacked in size they made up for in strategy. Fire, Jiho ordered. The human ships unleashed a new kind of weapon, relativistic kinetic missiles. Simple metal slugs accelerated to a significant fraction of light speed. No explosives, no fancy technology, just pure kinetic energy. When they struck, they hit with the force of nuclear weapons. 8 Kravax command ships were destroyed before they even knew they were under attack. The missiles moved too fast for shields to block, too fast for point defense systems to intercept. By the time the Kravax sensors detected them, the missiles had already hit. Retreat, one of the Kravax commanders screamed. We are being slaughtered. No, Morthos roared. We outnumber them. Find those human ships and destroy them. But finding the human ships was like trying to catch smoke. Every time the Kravax located one, it would fire a few shots and then disappear behind an asteroid or activate some kind of stealth system. The humans were not fighting like honorable warriors. They were fighting like hunters stalking dangerous prey. Lieutenant Daejung commanded one of the human frigates, the ESS Shadow. His ship darted between asteroids, firing missiles and then vanishing before the Kravax could respond. He had trained for this his entire military career. But actually fighting aliens was surreal. "Sir, we have 3 enemy vessels pursuing us," his pilot reported. "Lead them toward grid 774, Daejung ordered. "Captain Ji-ho has a surprise waiting there." The shadow accelerated, the Kravax ships following eagerly. They thought they finally had a human vessel trapped. What they did not know was that grid 774 contained one of Dr. Hana's special projects. Dr. Hana sat in a small control station hidden deep inside a hollowed asteroid. She was a slight woman with tired eyes and hands that never stopped moving across her control panels. Around her, massive machinery hummed with barely contained power. She had spent 12 years developing this weapon. Now she would finally see if it worked. "Target acquired," she whispered to herself. Firing. A beam of concentrated energy lanced out from the asteroid. It struck the lead Kravax ship directly in its reactor core. The alien vessel simply vaporized. The other 2 ships barely had time to react before the shadow circled back and destroyed them with conventional missiles. "Good shooting, Doctor," Daejung said over the communication channel. "Thank you, Lieutenant," Hana replied quietly. "I have 17 more shots before this weapon needs to recharge. Make them count." The battle raged for 6 hours. The Kravax fleet tried everything. They attempted to brute force their way through the asteroid belt. They tried to coordinate their shields to deflect the kinetic missiles. They even tried to retreat and regroup, but the humans were relentless. Ji-ho commanded the battle like a master conducting an orchestra. He knew where every ship was. He predicted where the Kravax would move. He set traps that seemed obvious but were actually disguised ambushes for the traps themselves. The Kravax were learning that humans did not just think 1 or 2 moves ahead, they thought 10 moves ahead. Young pilot Tae-yang sat in his fighter cockpit, hands shaking as he watched larger ships explode around him. This was his first real combat. He was terrified, but he was also angry. The Kravax had come to destroy his home. His family lived on Earth. His little sister was 7 years old. She liked to draw pictures of spaceships. "Shadow Lead, this is Fighter 7, Tae-yang said, trying to keep his voice steady. "Requesting permission to engage enemy cruiser at coordinates marked." "Negative, Fighter 7, Daejung responded. "That cruiser has point defense systems that will shred your fighter. Stay with your wing and focus on disabled vessels." Tae-yang wanted to argue, but he knew better. He had to trust his commanders. They had trained for this. They knew what they were doing. So he followed orders and survived. By the time the Kravax fleet finally broke through the asteroid belt, they had lost 98 ships. Nearly a third of their invasion force was gone. The survivors were damaged, disorganized, and shaken. They had expected an easy victory. Instead, they had walked into a nightmare. Morthos stared at his tactical display in disbelief. "This cannot be happening. We are the Kravax Empire. We have conquered 47 star systems." "High Regent," his tactical officer said quietly, "perhaps we should reconsider this invasion. The humans are more dangerous than we anticipated." "Reconsider?" Morthos's voice was dangerously low. "If I return to the Empire having failed, I will be executed for cowardice. No. We continue. Set course for the human homeworld. We will burn their cities from orbit. We will turn their planet into a wasteland. They will learn what it means to defy the Kravax." The remaining 202 warships limped toward Mars. Behind them, Ji-ho watched them go. His ship was damaged. His crew was exhausted. But they had succeeded in the first phase of Earth's defense. "Status report," Ji-ho ordered. "All human vessels accounted for," his tactical officer replied. "We lost 4 frigates and 1 destroyer. Casualties are relatively light. The Kravax lost nearly 100 ships. And we have shown them that we can bleed them," Ji-ho said. "But the real battle is about to begin. They are heading for Earth orbit. That is where we will finish this." He opened a communication channel to all human forces. "All ships fall back to lunar defensive positions. Phase 3 is now in effect. The Kravax are about to learn what happens when you threaten a death world on its own ground." As the Kravax fleet continued toward Earth, they passed the orbit of Mars. Their sensors swept the area, searching for more hidden human ships. They found nothing. Mars appeared empty. No bases. No defenses. Nothing. What they did not see were the thousands of mines that had been placed in Mars orbit. What they did not detect were the hidden weapons platforms disguised as space debris. And what they definitely did not know was that Earth had spent 15 years turning their entire solar system into the most dangerous battlefield in galactic history. Morthus looked at the image of Earth on his display. The blue and green planet looked peaceful, beautiful, helpless. "Soon," he whispered, "soon we will make you pay for the humiliation in the asteroid belt. Your planet will burn." But on Earth, billions of humans prepared for war. They were not cowering. They were not hiding. They were waiting for the enemy to come close enough, waiting for the moment to show these alien invaders what true predators looked like when defending their home. The trap was set. The Kravax were walking right into it, and humanity was ready. The Galactic Council chamber was filled with silent tension as holographic displays showed the Kravax fleet approaching Earth orbit. Representatives from 12 civilizations watched, most of them expecting to witness the destruction of humanity. They had seen this before, a young species challenging an established empire. It always ended the same way. Counselor Vex studied the displays more carefully than the others. Something was wrong. The Kravax fleet had arrived in orbit around Earth, and there was nothing to stop them. No orbital defense platforms, no ring of weapons satellites, no massive space stations bristling with guns. Earth's orbit was completely empty except for a few small space stations that were clearly civilian. "This makes no sense," Vex said quietly. "The humans fought brilliantly in the asteroid belt. They planned that ambush perfectly. Why would they leave their homeworld undefended?" Another council member, a floating gaseous being, responded. "Perhaps they used all their military strength in that first battle. Perhaps they have nothing left. Or perhaps," Vex said slowly, "they are inviting the Kravax to come down to the surface." On the Kravax flagship, Morthus stared at the undefended planet below. He knew it was a trap. It had to be a trap, but his pride would not let him retreat. He had lost 100 ships getting here. If he returned to the Empire without conquering Earth, he would be seen as weak. Worse than weak. A failure. "Deploy ground forces," he ordered. 5 landing sites. Their major population centers. "We will take their cities and force them to surrender. Keep the fleet in high orbit. If this is a trap, our ships will bombard the planet from space." Thousands of Kravax drop pods began falling toward Earth like deadly rain. They targeted 5 cities: Seoul, New York, Moscow, Cairo, and Sao Paulo. Each city held millions of humans. Each city would be made an example. The Kravax soldiers inside the pods were confident. They were warriors bred for conquest. They had taken hundreds of planets. Earth would be no different. In Seoul, Colonel Minseo stood on a rooftop and watched the pods streak across the sky. She was a compact woman with short black hair and eyes that had seen too many battles. Around her, soldiers prepared defensive positions. Not on the outskirts of the city, not in fortified bunkers outside the population centers, right in the middle of the city itself. "They are coming down in the financial district," her tactical officer reported. "Exactly where we predicted." Minseo nodded. "Of course they are. Large buildings provide good cover and high ground. It is what any military strategist would do. They will secure the tall buildings and use them as bases to control the city. Let them land. Let them think they have the advantage. Then we show them what urban warfare really means." The first Kravax pod slammed into the streets of Seoul. The armored doors blew open, and Kravax soldiers poured out. They were large creatures, each one standing over 2 meters tall with thick armor and powerful weapons. They had fought on 100 worlds. They expected frightened civilians and maybe a few desperate defenders. What they found instead was a dead city. The streets were empty. The buildings were dark. There were no civilians running in panic. No soldiers trying to hold defensive lines. Just silence. "Eerie and complete. Where are they?" a Kravax squad leader demanded, speaking into his communication unit. "The humans should be here. This city holds millions of them." "Unknown," his commander responded from orbit. "Thermal scans show life signs throughout the city, but they are not concentrating anywhere. They seem to be scattered, hiding in buildings." The Kravax squad began moving forward cautiously. They entered the financial district, massive towers of glass and steel rising above them. Their armor was designed for combat on low-gravity worlds. On Earth, with its heavier gravity, they moved more slowly than usual. It was uncomfortable but not debilitating. That was their first mistake. The second mistake was not understanding what humans had learned from thousands of years of urban combat. Cities were not just places to live. They could be turned into fortresses, into mazes, into killing grounds. The Kravax squad reached an intersection. Suddenly, the street behind them exploded, then the street in front, then both sides. They were trapped in a box made of fire and falling debris. The soldiers tried to retreat, but more explosions cut off every escape route. From windows high above, human soldiers opened fire. Not with futuristic energy weapons, with simple, reliable kinetic rifles that had been used on Earth for centuries. The bullets tore through Kravax armor because the armor was designed to stop energy weapons, not solid projectiles. The Kravax squad tried to return fire, but they could not see their attackers. The humans would fire a few shots and then disappear, move to another building, fire again, disappear again. It was like fighting ghosts. Fall back. The squad leader screamed, "Regroup at the landing zone." But there was no landing zone anymore. While the Kravax had been advancing, human soldiers had placed charges around the drop pods and detonated them. The landing zone was now a crater. The pods were destroyed. There was no safe place to retreat to. Colonel Mincio watched from her command post as the battle unfolded exactly as planned. Teams 7 through 12 converge on enemy position Delta. Teams 13 through 18 cut off their escape routes to the north. Remember, these soldiers are strong but slow in our gravity. Use speed, use mobility, hit them and move before they can respond. The same scenario was playing out in all 5 cities. The Kravax had thought they were invading defenseless population centers. Instead, they had walked into carefully prepared kill zones. Every building had been rigged with explosives. Every intersection had been turned into a potential ambush site. Every street was covered by hidden firing positions, and then there was Earth's gravity itself. The Kravax had evolved on a world where gravity was 30% weaker than Earth. Their muscles and bones were not adapted for this kind of sustained combat in heavy gravity. After just an hour of fighting, Kravax soldiers were already tiring. Their armor felt heavier. Their weapons were harder to aim. Their movements became sluggish. The human soldiers born and raised in this gravity moved like they were born for this warfare. Because they were. In New York, Kravax soldiers tried to secure a tall office building to use as a forward base. They fought their way to the 20th floor, expecting to find a good defensive position with clear sight lines. Instead, human soldiers had already planted explosives throughout the building. The entire structure came down, taking the Kravax with it. In Moscow, a Kravax armored vehicle rolled through the streets, its heavy guns sweeping for targets. Human soldiers in the sewers below planted magnetic mines on its underside. The vehicle exploded, blocking the street and trapping more Kravax units behind it. In Cairo, Kravax soldiers tried to use their superior strength to break through human defensive lines. But the human soldiers simply retreated, leading the aliens through streets that had been pre-targeted by artillery. The Kravax pushed forward eagerly, thinking they were winning. Then the artillery strikes began, and the street turned into hell. But it was in São Paulo where the Kravax learned their most painful lesson. A group of human civilians, armed only with simple weapons and homemade explosives, ambushed a Kravax patrol. The aliens were shocked. These were not soldiers. These were ordinary humans. Shop owners, teachers, students. And they were fighting with a ferocity that the Kravax had never encountered. One young woman, barely 20 years old, charged a Kravax soldier 3 times her size. She carried a crude explosive device. The soldier tried to shoot her, but she was too fast, too determined. She reached him and detonated the explosive, killing them both. From orbit, Morthus watched his ground forces being systematically destroyed. It had been 6 hours since the landing. He had sent down 50,000 soldiers. Barely 10,000 were still combat effective, and the humans showed no signs of stopping. "How is this possible?" he demanded. "They are using primitive weapons. Kinetic projectiles and chemical explosives. Technology that is centuries old." His tactical officer looked at the data streaming in from the ground. "High Regent, I believe I understand. The humans are not trying to match our technology. They are using weapons that they have perfected over thousands of years. Their tactics are not sophisticated in terms of technology, but they are sophisticated in terms of strategy. They know these cities. They have turned them into weapons themselves." Morthus slammed his fist against his command console. "Then we will destroy the cities from orbit. Prepare orbital bombardment. If we cannot take these cities, we will erase them." But before he could give the order, alarms began blaring throughout the flagship. His sensor officer shouted in panic, "High Regent, multiple human vessels emerging from behind the moon. They have been hiding there the entire time. Captain Jiho's fleet had been waiting patiently in lunar orbit, hidden behind Earth's natural satellite. While the Kravax focused on the ground battle, the human space fleet had positioned itself perfectly. Now they struck. The Kravax fleet was spread out, trying to provide support for the ground forces. They were not in a defensive formation. They were not prepared for a coordinated strike. Jiho exploited that weakness ruthlessly. All ships attack pattern Omega, Jiho ordered. Target their larger vessels first. We need to eliminate their bombardment capability before they can strike the cities. The human fleet tore into the Kravax formation, like sharks attacking scattered prey. The battle in orbit was brutal and quick. The Kravax had numbers, but the humans had momentum, surprise, and desperation. They were fighting to protect their homeworld, their families, their entire species. Lieutenant Daijung commanded his cruiser through a series of attack runs that would have been impossible in conventional naval warfare. He accelerated directly at a Kravax battleship, fired every weapon he had, and then used Earth's gravity to slingshot around and come at the enemy from a different angle. The Kravax could not track him. Their sensors were designed for open space combat, not this kind of gravity-assisted maneuvering. Young pilot Tae Yang found himself in the middle of a desperate dogfight. His fighter was damaged, his shields were failing, but he kept flying. He thought about his little sister back on Earth, about the drawings she had made for him. He would not let the Kravax hurt her. Fighter 7 to shadow lead, Tae Yang called out. I have enemy fire control locked on me. My shields are down. I cannot shake them. Fighter 7, eject immediately, Daejung ordered. That is a direct command, but Tae Yang saw something on his sensors. The Kravax ship pursuing him was one of the bombardment vessels. If it survived, it would fire on Seoul, on his home, on his family. He made a decision. Negative, shadow lead, Tae Yang said calmly. I have a better idea. Before Daejung could respond, Tae Yang turned his damaged fighter directly toward the Kravax bombardment ship. He pushed his engines to maximum. The enemy tried to shoot him down, but he was too close, moving too fast. His fighter slammed into the Kravax ship's bridge at incredible speed. Both vessels exploded in a ball of fire. Tae Yang never felt the impact. He died instantly, but he had saved thousands of lives below. Daejung watched the explosion on his tactical display. His hands gripped the arms of his command chair until his knuckles turned white. Another young pilot dead. Another sacrifice. How many more would it take? On the ground in Seoul, Colonel Min Seo received word of what was happening in orbit. The space battle was raging above them. They had to finish the ground fight quickly and help the fleet. All units, final push, she ordered. Drive them back to their landing zones. Do not let a single one escape. The human soldiers pressed forward with renewed intensity. The Kravax, already exhausted and demoralized, began to break. Squad after squad surrendered or was eliminated. By the time night fell over Seoul, the battle was over. The Kravax ground invasion had failed completely. In the Galactic Council chamber, absolute silence reigned. They had watched everything. The ground battles, the space combat, the moment when a young human pilot had sacrificed himself to save his city. Counselor Vex had been right. These humans were different. How many Kravax soldiers survived? One council member asked quietly. Initial reports suggest less than 2,000 out of 50,000, another responded. And those survivors are prisoners. The humans are treating them according to something they call the Geneva Conventions, rules for warfare that protect prisoners. They have rules for warfare? Someone asked in disbelief. They have entire treaties about how to conduct war humanely, Vex explained, because they have fought so many wars that they needed to create laws to prevent themselves from becoming monsters. Think about that. They became so good at killing that they had to invent rules to limit themselves. On the Kravax flagship, Morthus watched his invasion force die. His ground troops were gone. His fleet was being torn apart. In less than a day, he had gone from commanding 300 ships to barely 60. The humans had broken his empire's military might with tactics that seemed primitive, but were devastatingly effective. An emergency communication came through from the Kravax homeworld. The Emperor himself appeared on the holographic display, his 4 eyes blazing with fury. Morthus, you fool, the Emperor hissed. You have led our finest fleet to destruction. You attacked a Deathworld species without understanding what that meant. You have failed the Empire. My Emperor, I can still... Morthos began. You can still die with honor, the Emperor interrupted. Because if you return here alive, I will have you executed slowly over the course of weeks. You have brought shame upon the Kravax. You have shown the galaxy that we can be defeated. There is only one way to redeem yourself. Morthos understood. He looked at his remaining crew. They knew what had to happen. They had all failed together. There was no returning home. Prepare the planetary bombardment weapon, Morthos ordered quietly. If we cannot conquer Earth, we will destroy it. We will show the galaxy that defying the Kravax leads only to annihilation. His crew hesitated. They were soldiers, but they were not monsters. Destroying an entire planet was genocide. It went against every rule of warfare in the galaxy. That is a direct order. Morthos roared. Charge the weapon. We have 5 minutes until it is ready to fire, and not even the humans can stop us in 5 minutes. On Earth, alarms began blaring across every military installation. Sensors had detected the massive energy buildup on the Kravax flagship. Dr. Hana saw the readings and felt ice flood her veins. They are charging a planet-killer weapon, she whispered. They are actually going to do it. She opened an emergency channel to Captain Jiho. Captain, you need to destroy that flagship now. We have 5 minutes before they can fire. Jiho looked at his tactical display. The flagship was at the center of the remaining Kravax formation. It was protected by dozens of ships. Getting through them in 5 minutes was impossible with conventional tactics. But humans had never been very good at accepting impossible odds. All ships, Jiho broadcast to the entire human fleet. The enemy is preparing to destroy Earth. We have 5 minutes to stop them. I will not order anyone to follow me on what comes next. But I am going to ram that flagship. Anyone who wants to help is welcome to join me. There was a moment of silence. Then, one by one, every single human ship responded. Shadow ready to engage. Vengeance standing by. Liberty acknowledges. Defiance is with you. Every ship. Every captain. Every crew member. They all knew it was a suicide mission. They all volunteered anyway. Jiho felt pride surge through him. This was humanity. Not because they were the strongest. Not because they had the best technology. But because when their home was threatened, every single one of them was willing to die to protect it. Then let us show these aliens, Jiho said quietly. What happens when you threaten Earth? All ships full speed. Target enemy flagship. Do not stop for anything. Do not hesitate. Today we either save our world or die trying. The human fleet accelerated toward the Kravax flagship like missiles. They ignored the other enemy ships. They ignored the weapons fire tearing through their hulls. They had one target. One mission. Stop the planet-killer weapon. Morthos watched them come and realized far too late what true determination looked like. These humans were not going to run. They were not going to surrender. They were going to destroy his flagship even if it killed every single one of them. 4 minutes to weapon discharge, his tactical officer reported. The first human ship reached the Kravax defensive line. It was destroyed immediately. The second ship made it further before exploding. The third rammed a Kravax cruiser, taking both vessels out of the fight. 3 minutes. More human ships broke through. They were heavily damaged, burning, falling apart. But they kept coming. 2 minutes. Jiho's ship, the Vengeance, pushed through the last line of Kravax defenders. Its shields were gone. Its hull was breached in a dozen places. Half his crew was dead, but the engines still worked. And ahead of him, clear and close, was Morthos's flagship. 1 minute. Morthos looked at the human captain's face on his view screen. Jiho was bleeding from a head wound. His uniform was torn, but his eyes were clear and determined. This man would not stop. Could not be stopped. Firing antimatter warheads, Jiho said calmly. It was an honor serving with all of you. The Vengeance fired every weapon it had. Missiles streaked across space. Energy beams tore into the flagship's hull. And at the very front of the Vengeance, a special payload began to arm itself. Humanity's most terrible weapon. The thing they had sworn never to use again. Antimatter. Morthos had seconds to understand what was about to happen. Then the Vengeance impacted the flagship at full speed, and the antimatter warheads detonated. The explosion lit up the space around Earth like a second sun. The flagship vaporized instantly. The planet-killer weapon exploded harmlessly in the blast. The nearby Kravax ships were caught in the explosion and destroyed. When the light faded, the Kravax fleet was gone. All of it, 300 ships reduced to nothing. And floating in the debris field, heavily damaged but still intact, were 12 human vessels. 12 ships out of a fleet that had numbered 30, but they had survived. And more importantly, Earth had survived. In the Galactic Council chamber, the representatives sat in stunned silence. They had just watched a species barely 70 years into space travel defeat an empire that had conquered nearly 50 star systems. They had watched humans sacrifice themselves without hesitation to protect their home. Counselor Vex spoke softly, his words carrying across the silent chamber. I told you they were different. Death World species do not surrender. They do not flee. You push them into a corner and they will tear you apart even if it kills them. The Kravax Empire learned that lesson. I hope the rest of us remember it. Captain Jiho woke up in a medical bay. Every part of his body hurt. The last thing he remembered was the vengeance ramming the Kravax flagship, the blinding light of the antimatter explosion, and then nothing. He tried to sit up and immediately regretted it. Easy, Captain, a medical officer said, gently pushing him back down. You were in a coma for 3 days. Your ship was torn apart in the explosion. Lieutenant Daejung pulled you out of the wreckage. You are lucky to be alive. The fleet? Jiho managed to ask. Earth? Safe, the medical officer said with a smile. The Kravax fleet is destroyed. Every single ship. Earth is secure. You did it, Captain. You saved our world. Jiho closed his eyes and let the relief wash over him. They had won. Against impossible odds, humanity had defeated an empire that should have crushed them easily. But the victory felt hollow. He thought about all the soldiers who had died, the ships that were destroyed, young pilot Tae Yang who had sacrificed himself. In the Galactic Council chamber, Ambassador Hyun-woo stood before the assembled representatives once again. This time, the atmosphere was completely different. There was no dismissiveness, no contempt, only a wary respect and, in some cases, genuine fear. Members of the Galactic Council, Hyun-woo began. Earth has successfully defended itself against the Kravax invasion. Their fleet is destroyed. Their ground forces are either dead or in our custody, and now we must discuss what happens next. A holographic display activated, showing the Kravax Empire's territory, 47 conquered star systems, hundreds of billions of beings living under Kravax rule. All of them had watched the battle for Earth. All of them had seen the mighty Kravax military completely annihilated. The Kravax Empire is in chaos, Hyun-woo continued. Rebellions have already started on 12 of their conquered worlds. Species that were forced into submission are now rising up. The empire is collapsing, and humanity must decide what role we will play and what comes next. One of the council members spoke up. Surely Earth will not seek revenge? You have won. You have defended your homeworld. Let the Kravax deal with their own problems. Hyun-woo looked at the council member with an expression that was difficult to read. The Kravax came to our world intending to enslave or annihilate us. They would have killed billions. And they did this not just to us, but to dozens of other species throughout their empire. You, the Galactic Council, watched them do it for over a century. You did nothing. The chamber erupted in defensive protests. Several representatives tried to speak at once. Hyun-woo raised his hand for silence. I am not here to accuse you, he said. I am here to show you what we found. The holographic display changed. Now it showed images of Kravax-occupied worlds, species living in poverty while the Kravax stripped their planets of resources, mass graves, labor camps, children separated from parents. It was systematic oppression on a scale that made even the hardened council members uncomfortable. This is what the Kravax Empire really was, Hyun-woo said quietly. Not just conquerors, not just warriors. They were slavers, murderers, and they were coming to do this to Earth. Dr. Hana sat in her laboratory on Earth's moon, staring at a control panel. On the screen in front of her were activation codes. Codes that would launch missiles she had sent toward the Kravax homeworld weeks ago. Relativistic missiles traveling at a significant fraction of light speed. They would arrive in 6 days. And when they hit, they would destroy the Kravax homeworld completely. She had built them in secret, following orders from Earth's military command. If the Kravax destroyed Earth, these missiles would ensure that the Kravax paid for it with their own homeworld. Mutual assured destruction. The same concept that had kept Earth from destroying itself with nuclear weapons centuries ago. But Earth had survived. The war was over, and now she had to decide whether to recall the missiles or let them continue to their target. Her hands hovered over the keyboard. She thought about her family. Her parents and younger brother had been visiting a human colony when the Kravax attacked it 15 years ago. They were among the first humans to die in this conflict. She had spent 15 years planning revenge, building weapons, preparing for this war. Now she could have that revenge. All she had to do was nothing. Just let the missiles continue. Let the Kravax homeworld die. It would be justice. Her communication panel beeped. Ambassador Hyunwoo's face appeared on the screen. "Dr. Hana," he said gently, "I know what you are thinking. I know what you want to do. I lost my family to the Kravax too. My wife, my daughters. I understand the desire for revenge. Then you understand why I want to let the missiles hit," Hana said, her voice shaking with emotion. "I do," Hyunwoo agreed. "But I also understand what it will cost us. If we destroy the Kravax homeworld, we become the monsters. We become the genocidal species that the galaxy will fear and hate. Is that who we want to be?" "They deserve it," Hana whispered. "Perhaps they do," Hyunwoo said. "But what about the civilians? The children who had nothing to do with the war? The Kravax who oppose their own empire's expansion? If we kill them all, how are we different from the Kravax themselves?" Hana looked at the activation codes. Her finger moved toward the abort command, then stopped, then moved again. She was paralyzed by the decision. Colonel Minseo entered the laboratory quietly. She had been listening to the conversation. She walked up to Hana and placed a hand on her shoulder. "I lost people too," Minseo said softly. "My brother. My closest friends. I want the Kravax to pay for what they did, but I have been thinking about what my brother would want. He always said that the measure of a person is not how they treat their friends. It is how they treat their enemies, especially when they have power over them." "I am so tired," Hana said, tears finally starting to fall. "I am tired of fighting, tired of hating. I just want it to be over." "Then end it," Minseo said. "Not with more death. End it by choosing to be better than them." Hana looked at both of them. Then she typed in the abort codes. The missiles changed course, their warheads disarming. They would be collected by human ships and dismantled. The Kravax homeworld would survive. She slumped in her chair, feeling both relief and a strange emptiness. 15 years of hatred and anger, released in a single moment. In the Galactic Council chamber, Hyunwoo received confirmation that the missiles had been recalled. He allowed himself a small smile of relief before continuing his address. "Earth has decided to show mercy," he announced. "We have recalled our weapons. The Kravax homeworld will not be destroyed, but there are conditions." A new holographic display appeared showing a detailed proposal. "The Kravax Empire will dissolve," Hyunwoo stated. "All conquered species will be granted independence. The Kravax military will be reduced to a defensive force only. They will pay reparations to the species they oppressed, and they will submit to oversight from the Galactic Council to ensure they never threaten another world again." "And if they refuse?" a council member asked. "Then we will destroy their homeworld," Hyunwoo said simply. "We have shown mercy once. We will not show it twice." The council members looked at each other nervously. This young species, barely 70 years into space travel, was dictating terms to an empire that had controlled this region of space for centuries, and they were doing it with such confidence that no one dared argue. "There is one more thing," Hyunwoo said. "Earth requests permission to present evidence against the Galactic Council itself." The chamber fell silent. Several representatives looked outraged. "Evidence of what?" Councillor Vex asked carefully. "Evidence of complicity," Hyunwoo replied. "For over a century, the Kravax expanded through conquest. They enslaved species. They committed atrocities. And the Galactic Council did nothing. You watched. You debated. But you never acted. You allowed the Kravax to become monsters because stopping them would have required you to engage in violence. And your species are not comfortable with violence." He paused, letting his words sink in. "You are peaceful civilizations, and that is admirable," Hyunwoo continued. "But your peace came at the cost of younger species who suffered under Kravax rule. You maintained your moral purity by allowing others to die. That is not peace. That is cowardice." The accusations hung in the air like smoke. Several council members wanted to argue, but they could not. Everything Hyunwoo said was true. They had watched the Kravax expand. They had received pleas for help from conquered species. And they had done nothing because intervening would mean war, and their civilizations had forgotten how to fight wars. Counselor Vex stood up. His crystalline form seemed to shimmer with emotion. "The human is correct," Vex said heavily. "We have failed in our duty. We created the Galactic Council to prevent exactly this kind of situation. But when it happened, we were too afraid to act. We owe an apology not just to humanity, but to every species that suffered while we did nothing." Lieutenant Dai Jung stood on the bridge of his newly repaired cruiser. He had been promoted to captain for his actions during the war. His crew was young, many of them fresh replacements for those who had died in the battle. They looked at him for guidance, for wisdom, for leadership. He thought about Captain Jiho, still recovering from his injuries. He thought about young Tae Yang, who had died saving thousands. He thought about all the sacrifices that had been made. "Captain," his tactical officer said, "we are receiving a transmission from the Kravax homeworld. They are requesting to speak with our command staff." "Put it through," Daejung ordered. The screen showed a Kravax civilian, not a warrior, not a military commander, an elderly Kravax with tired eyes. "I am Speaker Jin Hai of the Kravax People's Assembly," the alien said. "I speak for those of us who opposed the war, who tried to stop our empire's expansion. We failed, and now our military is destroyed. Our government has collapsed. We are asking for humanity's help." Daejung was surprised. "You are asking your enemy for help?" "You are not our enemy," Jin Hai said. "You are defending yourselves. Our military leaders were the enemies of both our species. They oppressed us as much as they oppressed others. Now they are gone, and we are trying to build something better, but we need help. We need guidance." Daejung thought carefully before responding. "Why should we help you? Your people came to destroy our world." "Because," Jin Hai said quietly, "you have already shown that you are better than us. You could have destroyed our homeworld. You had every right to do so. But you chose mercy. That choice means everything. It means that perhaps we can learn from you, learn to be better." Daejung looked at his crew. They were all listening, all watching to see what he would do. He made a decision that he hoped Captain Jiho would approve of. "We will send advisors," Daejung said. "We will help you rebuild. But understand this. If the Kravax ever threaten another species again, humanity will not show mercy a second time." "Understood," Jin Hai said with obvious relief. "Thank you. You are giving us a chance we do not deserve." After the transmission ended, Daejung's tactical officer spoke up. "Sir, are we really going to help them? After everything they did?" "Yes," Daejung said. "Because that is what separates us from them. They destroyed civilizations. We will help build them. That is the difference between a predator and a monster. A predator kills to survive. A monster kills because it can. We are predators when we must be, but we are also more than that. On Earth, the cities were being rebuilt. Memorials were erected for the fallen. Life slowly returned to normal, though normal would never be quite the same. Humanity had passed a test. They had faced an existential threat and survived. More than survived. They had won." Captain Jiho stood at one of the memorials in Seoul, looking at the names carved into stone. So many names, so many lives lost. He placed his hand on the memorial and spoke softly. "We survived, we won, but the cost was high. Too high, I promise you all. Your sacrifice will mean something. We will build a future worthy of what you gave us." Above Earth, a new station was being constructed. Not a military station, a diplomatic one. Humanity's gateway to the galaxy. A place where humans and aliens could meet, trade, learn from each other. It was named Hope Station, a symbol of humanity's belief in a better future. The war was over. Earth had survived, and now humanity would help ensure that no other species would have to face what they had faced. They would be guardians, protectors, the galaxy's predators, using their strength not to conquer but to defend. The Galactic Council was about to learn that humans were not just dangerous when defending themselves. They were equally dangerous when defending others. 3 months had passed since the Kravax invasion ended. Earth cities were mostly rebuilt, though scars still remained. The memorial walls in Seoul, New York, Moscow, Cairo, and Sao Paulo held thousands of names. People visited them every day, placing flowers and remembering those who had given everything to protect humanity. Ambassador Hyun-woo stood in a neutral space station at the edge of Galactic Council territory. This was not a council station. This was a meeting place built specifically for this occasion. Around him stood Captain Jiho, recovered from his injuries but walking with a slight limp that would never fully heal. Dr. Hana was there too, quieter than before but no longer consumed by hatred. Colonel Minseo completed the small human delegation, her sharp eyes studying every detail of their surroundings. They were waiting for the Vrin collective to arrive. The Vrin were ancient even by galactic standards. Their civilization had existed for over 20,000 years. They had watched empires rise and fall like seasons changing, and they had requested this meeting with Earth's representatives. Do we know what they want? Minseo asked quietly. No, Hyunwoo admitted. The Vrin rarely involve themselves in galactic affairs. The fact that they want to meet us at all is significant and concerning. A door opened, and the Vrin delegation entered. There were 3 of them. They looked almost human, which was unsettling. Tall, elegant beings with silver skin and eyes that seemed to see through everything. The leader, who introduced herself simply as Elder Kyungmi, studied the humans with an expression that was hard to read. Thank you for meeting with us, Kyungmi said. Her voice was soft but carried a weight that suggested vast age and experience. We have been watching your species since you first achieved space travel. Your development has been remarkable. Remarkable good or remarkable bad? Jiho asked bluntly. Kyungmi smiled slightly. Both. Humans are what we call an apex predator species. You evolved on what you correctly identify as a death world, a planet so hostile that survival required constant adaptation, innovation, and competition. Such worlds are rare, and species that achieve sapience on them are even rarer. She activated a holographic display showing dozens of planets scattered across the galaxy. In the known galaxy, there are approximately 47 confirmed death worlds that produce sapient life, Kyungmi continued. Most of those species destroyed themselves before achieving space travel. Their competitive nature and capacity for violence turned inward, and they did not survive their own technological adolescence. Only 7 death world species currently exist at a spacefaring level. Humanity is the newest, so we are rare, Hana said. But why does that matter? Because apex predator species serve a unique function in galactic civilization, another Vrin elder named Junseo explained. The peaceful species that dominate the Galactic Council evolved on garden worlds, planets where cooperation was rewarded and aggression was disadvantageous. They built civilizations based on harmony. This is admirable, but it also makes them vulnerable. Vulnerable to species like the Kravaks, Hyunwoo said, understanding dawning. Exactly, Kyungmi confirmed. The Kravaks were not a death world species, but they were aggressive enough to threaten others. And the Council species were too peaceful to stop them effectively. They could have crushed the Kravaks Empire if they committed their combined forces. But their cultures are not built for sustained warfare. They lack the stomach for it. But death world species do not have that problem, Jiho said. We are built for conflict. You are built for survival, Kyungmi corrected. Conflict is one tool in your survival strategy. You also have remarkable capacity for cooperation, adaptation, and resilience. The combination makes you uniquely suited for a specific role. She changed the holographic display to show a structure that looked like a council chamber, but different from the Galactic Council. This is the Guardian Assembly, Kyungmi explained. It consists of the 7 Deathworld species and the Vrin Collective as advisors. Our purpose is to protect the galaxy from threats that peaceful species cannot handle themselves. We are, in essence, the guardians who do the difficult work so that others can maintain their peace. The human delegation exchanged glances. This was bigger than they had expected. You want humanity to join this Guardian Assembly, Minseo said. It was not a question. We are offering you a choice, Junseo said. You can remain independent, develop on your own, and hope that no other threats emerge. Or you can join us, share your military innovations and tactics, learn from species who have been doing this work for thousands of years, and help protect younger, more vulnerable civilizations from those who would prey upon them. What is the cost? Hyunwoo asked carefully. Responsibility, Kyungmi said simply. If you join the Guardian Assembly, you become responsible for more than just Earth. You become protectors of the peace that the Council species have built. When threats emerge, you will be called upon to face them. You will be asked to do violence so others do not have to. It is not an easy burden. And if we refuse? Hana asked. Then you refuse, Kyungmi said with a shrug. We will not force you. But consider this. In the next century, at least 3 more aggressive species will likely attempt expansion similar to the Kravax. They will target weak, peaceful worlds. The Council will debate and discuss while innocents die. The Guardian Assembly will act. With humanity's help, we can prevent those deaths. Without you, more species will suffer what the Kravax inflicted on their victims. The human delegation asked for time to discuss among themselves. The Vryn granted it graciously and left them alone in the conference room. This is a huge decision, Mincio said once they were alone. We would be committing Earth to potentially endless conflicts. More wars, more deaths, more young people like Tai Yang sacrificing themselves. But we would also be preventing others from suffering what we suffered. Hana said quietly. The Kravax came to Earth because no one stopped them earlier, because the Council let them grow strong. If we join this Guardian Assembly, we can stop the next Kravax before they become a threat. Jiho looked at Hyunwoo. What do you think, Ambassador? Hyunwoo was quiet for a long moment. I think about my daughters. They died when the Kravax attacked that colony 15 years ago. They were children, innocent, and they died because the galaxy had no one willing to stand against the Kravax early enough. If we join this assembly, maybe no other father has to lose his children that way. But we would be becoming professional warriors, Minseo pointed out. Earth's military would become the galaxy's military. Is that who we want to be? We are already warriors, Jiho said. The Kravax proved that. We built the weapons. We developed the tactics. We trained the soldiers. We did all of that to protect ourselves. Now we are being asked to use those same capabilities to protect others. Is that not a worthy purpose? Hana nodded slowly. My family died to the Kravax. I spent 15 years building weapons for revenge. But when I had the chance to use those weapons, I chose mercy instead. Maybe this is the next step. Using our strength not for revenge or conquest, but for protection. They debated for another hour, discussing implications, consequences, and potential problems. Finally, they reached a consensus. When the Vryn returned, Hyunwoo delivered Earth's answer. We will join the Guardian Assembly, he said. But we have conditions. Kyungmi raised an eyebrow. Oh? A species barely a century into space travel has conditions for beings who have existed for millennia? Yes, Hyunwoo said without hesitation. First, Earth maintains sovereignty. We will help protect others, but we will not become servants or soldiers for hire. We participate as equals. Second, we want the Galactic Council reformed. Their inaction enabled the Kravax. That cannot happen again. Third, we want resources dedicated to helping species develop defenses of their own. We should not be the only ones capable of protecting ourselves. The Vryn elders looked at each other. Then Kyungmi smiled, a genuine expression of approval. These are reasonable conditions, she said, and they show wisdom. Many Death World species that join us are so focused on their military strength that they forget about development and prevention. You understand that the best battle is the one that never needs to be fought. We accept your conditions. Welcome to the Guardian Assembly, humanity. The formal announcement was made 1 week later. The Galactic Council held an emergency session where Ambassador Hyunwoo presented Earth's decision. The reaction was mixed. Some council members were relieved that humanity would help protect the galaxy. Others were nervous about a predator species having official sanction to use military force. Councillor Vex was one of the few who seemed genuinely pleased. This is the correct decision, he said publicly. Humanity has proven they can be trusted with power. They showed mercy to the Kravax when they could have destroyed them. They chose protection over revenge. These are the qualities we need in our guardians. In the former Kravax Empire, rebellions had succeeded on most conquered worlds. Species that had been enslaved for generations were free again. But freedom brought chaos. Without the Empire's infrastructure, many worlds struggled. Famine threatened some populations. Others faced civil wars as different factions fought for control. The Guardian Assembly's first joint mission was humanitarian, not military. Human ships, working alongside vessels from the other Death World species, delivered food, medical supplies, and peacekeeping forces. They helped negotiate treaties. They separated warring factions. They built the foundations for stable governments. Captain Daejung commanded one of these humanitarian missions. His crew worked around the clock, sometimes going days without sleep to help rebuild a world that had been devastated by Kravax occupation. He watched his young sailors and soldiers help alien civilians, teach them skills, play with their children. This was different from war. This was building instead of destroying. And it was harder in many ways. Combat had clear objectives. Shoot the enemy. Protect your people. Win or die. But rebuilding required patience, diplomacy, and the kind of endurance that came from doing difficult work, day after day with no dramatic victories. One evening, Daejung received a video message from Earth. It was from Taeyang's little sister. She was 8 years old now, and she had drawn a picture. It showed a spaceship with the Earth flag, surrounded by happy aliens of different species. "Captain Daejung," she said in the video, her voice small but determined. "My brother died protecting Earth. My mom says he was a hero. I want to be like him when I grow up. I want to help people in space. Thank you for being nice to the aliens. My brother would have liked that." Daejung felt tears sting his eyes. He saved the video and the picture. Later, he showed them to his crew. "This is why we are here," he told them. "Not for glory, not for revenge, but so that little girls like her can grow up in a galaxy where species help each other instead of destroying each other. Taeyang died protecting his family. Now we honor his sacrifice by protecting everyone's family." On Earth, memorials were completed in all 5 cities that had been attacked. The names of the fallen were carved in stone that would last for centuries. Every year on the anniversary of the invasion, humanity would gather to remember. Not to celebrate war, not to glorify violence, but to honor those who gave everything to protect others. Admiral Jiho, promoted after the war, oversaw the construction of Earth's Guardian fleet. New ships were being built, incorporating lessons learned from the Kravax War. But these ships were different from the desperate weapons they had built before. These ships were designed for protection, not just destruction. They could fight when necessary, but they were also equipped for rescue, humanitarian aid, and peacekeeping. The flagship of the new fleet was named Indomitable Hope. It was a powerful warship, yes, but it also had medical facilities that could treat thousands of casualties, cargo bays filled with emergency supplies, diplomatic spaces for negotiations. It represented what humanity wanted to be: strong enough to protect, wise enough to choose peace when possible. Dr. Hana joined the Guardian Assembly's research division. She worked with scientists from the other Deathworld species, sharing knowledge and developing new technologies. But the focus was not on weapons. It was on shields, sensors, early warning systems, ways to prevent conflicts before they started, ways to protect without destroying. She kept a small photograph in her laboratory. Her parents and brother from before the Kravax killed them. She looked at it sometimes and spoke to them quietly. "I hope you would be proud," she would say. "I almost became a monster seeking revenge for you. But I chose something better. I chose to make sure no one else loses their family the way I lost you. That is a better memorial than hatred ever could be." Colonel Minseo became the director of the Guardian Academy on Earth. Young people from dozens of species came to train there. They learned not just combat, but diplomacy, cultural understanding, ethics, and the laws of warfare that humanity had developed over millennia. The goal was to create not just soldiers but peacekeepers who understood the weight of using force. Minseo was tough on her students but fair. She taught them the same lesson she had learned during the Kravax War, that true strength was knowing when not to fight, that the best warrior was one who could end conflicts without violence. 10 years after the Kravax invasion, the galaxy had changed dramatically. The Galactic Council had reformed, incorporating feedback from the Guardian Assembly. They were more responsive now, more willing to act when threats emerged. The Kravax homeworld had transformed itself into a peaceful democracy, deeply ashamed of their imperial past and working hard to make amends. 6 species that had been threatened by aggressive neighbors requested protection from Earth's Guardian fleet. In each case, Admiral Jiho's response was the same: arrive in force, make it clear that aggression would not be tolerated, and then help negotiate peaceful solutions. 4 potential wars were prevented without firing a shot. 2 required brief military interventions that ended quickly with minimal casualties. Humanity was becoming known throughout the galaxy as fierce protectors, dangerous when threatened but merciful when victorious. Species that needed help called for them. Species that considered aggression feared them. It was exactly the reputation that the Guardian Assembly wanted. In a quiet cafe in Seoul, Dr. Hana and Colonel Minseo met for coffee. It had become a tradition for them, meeting once a month to talk about life beyond military service. They watched through the window as children of a dozen different species played together in a nearby park. Human children, Kravax children, Species that had been enemies now raising their kids together in peace. Do you think they understand? Hana asked quietly. The children. Do they understand what we did? What we sacrificed? Mincio smiled, watching a small human girl share her toy with a young Kravax boy who had recently arrived as part of a cultural exchange program. They will understand, she said, because we will teach them. We will teach them that strength is not just about winning fights. It is about protecting those who cannot protect themselves. It is about choosing mercy when you have the power to destroy. It is about building bridges instead of walls. That sounds like something my brother would have said, Hana noted with a sad smile. Then he was wise, Mincio replied, and his wisdom lives on through us, through everyone who learned from what happened. Above them in orbit, construction continued on the latest Guardian Fleet vessel, sleek and powerful, bristling with weapons but also carrying the tools of peace. On its hull, the name was being painted ESS Taiyang, a memorial to the young pilot who had given everything to protect his home. The galaxy had learned a hard lesson when they attacked Earth. They learned that predator species were not monsters to be feared and avoided. They were protectors to be respected and, when necessary, called upon. Humanity had shown that beings who knew how to fight could choose not to. That those who understood violence could value peace even more deeply, because they understood its cost. Ambassador Hyunwoo stood before the Guardian Assembly, now a permanent member representing Earth. Around him sat representatives from the other Deathworld species and the Vryn Elders. They were discussing a potential threat developing in a distant sector, a species showing early signs of aggressive expansion. We should intervene early, one representative suggested. Stop them before they become another Kravax. No, Hyunwoo said firmly. We offer to help them first. We show them there is a better path. We only intervene with force if diplomacy fails. That is what separates us from the threats we protect against. We give everyone a choice. We give everyone a chance. The others nodded in agreement. This was the Guardian way. Strength tempered by wisdom, power restrained by ethics, violence as a last resort, not a first response. Counselor Vex attended the meeting as an observer. He was ancient now, even by his species standards, but he watched the human ambassador with satisfaction. He had been right about these newcomers. They were predators, yes, but they were also something more. They were proof that beings who knew darkness could choose to walk in the light. After the meeting, Vex approached Hyunwoo privately. You have done well, the old being said. Your species has exceeded every expectation. You faced the test of power and you passed. Many species fail that test. They gain strength and become tyrants. You gained strength and became guardians. We learned from hard experience, Hyunwoo said. We nearly destroyed ourselves several times in our history. We know what happens when power is not tempered by responsibility. We know the cost of unchecked aggression. Those lessons saved us. Now we can share them with others. The galaxy is better for your presence, Vex said simply. I am glad I lived long enough to see it.